Hello, ladies, Gungans, and those beyond the binary. My name's Charlie Savage,
And my name's Ethan Odell.
and welcome to episode 18 of Outer Rim Radio, the podcast made by Star Wars nerds for Star Wars nerds. Today, we're discussing the last two episodes of season 1 of The Bad Batch. So, before we get into that, let's talk about some recent Star Wars news that's came up.
Yeah, it hasn't been much. Starting off
Yeah?
hot here, Charlie. Hasn't been much.
As we always do,
to
baby.
be honest. I know. What I was gonna say is it hasn't been much in Star Wars news, despite Charlie and I having a little bit of a break between episodes. But I will say we do have some pretty quality stuff this time, rather than all the quantity of news we got this
Last
summer.
time, yeah.
So the big thing that I see so far in Star Wars news is the Visions, Star Wars Visions. It's essentially Star Wars the anime. They debuted the trailer
Plural.
finally, so you guys can look that up. And they announced that Visions will come out on Disney Plus on September 22nd. So that's very, very exciting.
It is. I'm very interested. I think this could certainly lead to, some more collaborations. I'm glad it's like not canon right now, but they're just like
I'm
letting
good with
people
it
do
not
whatever.
being canon. I think this is one of the situations where that's for the creator's benefit, because it's so hard to stay in the lines of all this canon. It's what's going on. I mean, there's a reason Disney came in, swooped in, and eliminated so much stuff, because they said simply, it's so hard and so difficult to make content with all this stuff in the way. So I think it's for the benefit of these creators to really make whatever they want. If they want to reimagine General Grievous, if they want to reimagine the Empire, or if they want to make some completely different original content, go for it. So I'm very excited to see it. I think at the end of the day, it's going to be fun. And I think that's what we've missed a lot of in the Star Wars community. It's just some action and fun, just straight badass kind of action scenes. I mean, we've seen the trailers, and there's some like Star Wars samurai kind of stuff going on. So
which I love.
I'm very excited.
Yeah.
Other than that, not too many like date announcements. If you're looking for something's gonna come out, the only thing really is a vision so far. Other than that, they got an announcement that Lego Star Wars: The Skywalker Saga is finally going to come out.
Yeah.
Maybe in spring 2022, after all this time of being pushed back. It will be very interesting.
But you know what? This game looks so much better than it did the first time we saw it.
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely progress. If it's something you're interested in, if you've ever played the Lego games, they're quite fun. It's a different way to kind of capture a story because there is no dialogue. So it's all really...
Except there is now.
Oh, that's true.
Yeah, they have them now. The old ones are great, but I know for a while the devs were talking about having just like a mode or like a cheat that you buy in the store, sort of deal like they've always had, where it just has the no talking modes and cutscenes, but they're like it's kind of hard to do that. So I don't know if they ever fell through on that. I guess we'll find out next spring. But
we'll see. This game's changed a lot.
They are dead set on bringing back the hilarious Yoda death scream. That.
Oh yeah. Oh man, that's a classic. But yeah, so that's what's going on there. That's been delayed for ever. But into the big, exciting news.
Actually, before you get to that, I just want to talk a little bit something about why Skywalker Saga was delayed. And obviously, I think a big part of it's the pandemic, but the other thing is that this is going to be very different from every other Lego game we've ever had before. Right. In terms of the fact it's an open world where you can literally go between all the different Star Wars planets. There's like real-time crosshair like ship battles. You can fly into the ship like you used to in Battlefront. Like there's lots of crazy stuff. It's really just made to be the ultimate like open exploration sort of game. So it's way more than what they thought, and it's way more than they've ever done before, and seeing that with Star Wars is super exciting. Now, on to what Odie wanted to talk about, which is actually way more important, but...
So, if you don't know, about the Book of Boba Fett. It's essentially going to be the in between the seasons 2 and 3 of The Mandalorian. So, in the usual time slot in which we would have been getting Mandalorian this year, we're getting the Book of Boba Fett, which is all about Boba Fett. And who's directing that? Robert Rodriguez. And he's been making a lot of hype promises. And I'm just going to read you his quote directly because I think it says it as it is. And I'm just going to say this guy is a fantastic director. When he makes promises like this, he delivers. So this is very exciting news to hear. Wait until you see what's coming. It's going to blow your mind. That's all I can say. I can talk it up all I want because I know it over delivers. It way over delivers. People are going to be so pumped when they see it. And I'm just excited because he's saying this. The actors are seeming really excited. We're getting a lot from Fennec Shand, the actress who plays Fennec Shand.
Ming-Na Wen.
Ming-Na Wen is talking a lot about it. So I'm just really excited. I think there's a lot of chemistry going on set. Everyone's tweeting about it, having such a good time. They've wrapped that up. So it's very exciting.
Yeah. And for yo, Kate, thanks for the sub. But I think I might need to hold on. Yeah, I think the sub note goes through.
Did it go through?
Yeah. Thanks for the sub, buddy. But what I did want to talk about in this for the podcast is for those of you that don't know, Robert Rodriguez directed that episode of The Mandalorian, you know, the really cool one where Boba Fett comes back and has literally the most badass cinematography that Star Wars has probably ever had, especially for a gun-wielding character. Star Wars has had great fights with sabers, but I think seeing that come through, that was super awesome.
Yeah, he is definitely a Western director. His most famous thing ever is El Mariachi. That was his debut film.
Are you sure it wasn't Spy Kids?
And then I was gonna say he did all the Spy Kids movies. He did the Sin City movies. He did Machete. So he's definitely prepared to do way over the top, crazy action. And to be honest, that's the only thing I want with Boba Fett and Fennec Shand. I want ridiculous, absolutely ridiculous fights.
Yeah.
So it should be fun.
Also, Adventures of Shark Boy and Lava Girl. Can't forget that.
Oh, yeah.
No, that absolute banger of a film. All right.
What else we got here, Charlie? Oh, I wanted to talk about this. This is the last thing with the news. If you didn't hear about it, I think it's really cool because it kind of plays homage to a very classic Star Wars tale. They finally revealed how they hid Luke Skywalker in the Mandalorian finale return. They released some storybook art. You should look it up if you can. Look up original Luke Skywalker Mandalorian finale storybook. They actually had Plo Koon as the storybook.
That's my favorite thing in the little documentary that Disney released on Disney Plus.
Yeah, and this just kind of went viral recently, although it was in that documentary. And it's just so cool to see how they've done that twice now. They've had this big reveal. The original was the "No, I'm your father" line that was originally not in the script. So I really enjoy the fact that they're still finding ways to keep things fresh and get real reactions from the actors and stuff like that. So it should be really fun.
Yeah. Also, I love how like big brain that is from Dave Filoni. For the fact that people knew that Dave Filoni worked heavily on the story and that he literally made it Plo Koon because it's very well known that the community knows that Plo Koon's his favorite Jedi.
Yeah.
So
no one would question it.
Yeah, so if the script were to eventually leak, they would know that people would be like, "Oh, it makes so much sense because Filoni," which I love. That's my favorite like little detail from it.
Yeah, But that's really it. That's all Charlie and I got to talk about for news
Yeah.
that's been going on in the Star Wars community. So as of now, we're just going to talk about the finale, the last two episodes of Star Wars: Bad Batch Season 1. Wow, that was really hard for me to say.
The season 1 finale of Star Wars: The Bad Batch. Hey, there it is.
There we go.
Words.
So Charlie, what were your
speak 'em.
thoughts overall?
Initially, I think I've kind of come around on it, but my initial thoughts, if you guys didn't see, I posted a bit of a rant on both YouTube and TikTok, content. And my biggest, I think there's I don't know where we should necessarily start, but overall, I just had to say at first I didn't really like it, and my biggest issue was it's hard to like it because I don't find Crosshair to be a very likable character.
Mm-hmm.
And there wasn't really much in the ways of any sort of sympathy I really wanted to have for the character in like any sort of regard. It was kind of like if he died, I'd been like, okay, cool. Because they each gave each other opportunities. However, I do also think it's kind of better writing and storytelling that, he's slow to come around on it. And I'm very interested to see what happens next. But it was overall just not super satisfying to really conclude on that.
Yeah, we had, 16 episodes total, right?
Yeah.
We had 16 episodes. It was really a slow burn. But I will say what made me come around to it was the fact that you started with these characters in extreme turmoil and they grow. But in most stories, there's going to be this traumatic event or this fantastic event that causes extreme change.
Yeah.
And instead, we got no burn. We got a tale of them just being able to accept each other, to understand the situation. And at the end of the day, it's a tragedy. They lose a
Right.
friend. He's not, they find out he's not an enemy, but they still lose him.
Yeah. And I think it's better.
What's
I think it's more
not
grounded.
satisfying about that, but what's the problem there is you get lots of loss. Kamino falls.
Yeah.
A lot of characters die off screen for some, and you just have Crosshair leaving. And there's a lot of very emotional notes that, to me, I don't want to say fall on deaf ears, but that's kind of the feeling there because it's Crosshair's not that important of a character. It would have been one thing, not important, but like he's not that grabbing of a character. He's scary. He's a good villain. But
he's a threat. He's talented. He's a badass. But it's like
the reasons he's a good villain are because he's cold and calculating and talented, like Charlie's saying. Whereas for other villains in Star Wars, Darth Vader's, it's just
blunt force. Like
he's blunt force trauma, but there's also a tragic backstory. With Crosshair, he's just a dude who wanted to side with the Empire, and they're trying to appeal to these emotional notes. I thought you were our brother. But we never really got that.
Yeah.
I mean, think of how many episodes.
Even in like the Clone Wars, even in the Clone Wars, it's like they don't necessarily really get along, and Crosshair is kind of the crux of the issues of all arguments within the group. We kind of saw them all come together and really be able to rally all season, with only like Tech and Wrecker having banter because one's intelligent and then one's an idiot. Like it was overall really steady, and they all were doing the right things. Like the most problematic person became Tech because he's just him,
Yeah.
And that is another part of it. Crosshair is also just himself. Tech kind of explains that in that line in the finale.
Yeah, and that's not very satisfying, right? Just to go, oh, this is the way you are, and that's why everything's gonna suck.
Right.
I mean, he's not a terrible person. I mean, he saves AZ, the droid,
Omega,
at the end. But also the thing about that is it had been one thing if it was Nala Se, if it was Hunter, if it was someone we cared emotionally about. But instead, we got 16 episodes. Actually, I'll say it this way: we got 14 really badass episodes,
Yeah.
really action-packed, super cool episodes, and then for the last two, they tried to stop and explain something in a way no one really could care about.
Yeah. I I
It's 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 done well. The scenes were well written. The dialogue was good.
yeah.
It's just not interesting.
I
It
think
didn't
I
really
think the
have
most valid
legs.
criticism of this episode is that this didn't really need to be the finale. It makes sense on paper, right? When you're writing a story, right? Like you have Kamino following the group really not getting back together. Like it makes sense to be the finale, but there's also no reason this couldn't have been episode 10, you know,
Yeah.
10 and 11 or
Wouldn't it
this
have been so much more interesting to
cuz I
cut
would
out a
have
lot of that bounty hunter bullshit? And I'll put it two ways. You could have cut out a lot of the bounty hunter stuff and then have this be episode 10, and then you have 2 episodes of them trying to
Uh-oh.
get away from Crosshair or get
You like
Crosshair
cut out
back.
for a second.
What's up? Oh, frozen?
You just cut out for like half a second.
Okay. My video's going me. My video froze too, so
Yeah.
that should fix it.
Desyncing. It's fun.
We love it.
Everyone should do it.
Everyone.
But yeah.
So my big thing there is just they could have either gone harder on the Crosshair thing, or they could have just let him be the blunt force scary villain.
Yeah.
And because they wanted to step between two worlds, we got a lot of blandness in that theme. Charlie and I were talking about what is the Bad Batch about? What
how
is
do
the
you
symphony
recommend the show?
of
Like
it?
it's good, but how do I recommend this, you know?
My recommendation is if you want to watch badass super soldiers become bounty hunters, like it's Star Wars, the A Team.
Yeah, it's
It's
that.
super fun. But the thing about the show is, actually the best way to think about this is
It's like A
if you
Team,
don't know
it's
what the
Dirty
A Team
Dozen,
is,
it's like Leverage. Like
the A Team is basically I'm going to detour a little bit to explain this, but the A Team was a show about these ex Special Forces soldiers who were charged and found guilty for a crime they didn't commit. And in what year?
a lot they escaped
So it
somewhere in
came out
Los
in
Angeles, yeah.
Yeah, it came out in 1983. They
Also,
remade
can we
it in
shout out to the
2000.
old shows where they used to just tell you the plot in the intro and then play a title theme?
Right. They
A crack
remade it.
commando unit.
They remade it in 2010, and they tried to give it so much emotion and so much feel. And I'm sitting there, I'm like, shut the fuck up. I just want to watch you blow shit up, and it's fun. It's an action film. Let
Which
it be
they
an
did
action
deliver
film.
on that. There
Yeah,
was
and
lots
that's
of blowing
exactly
up. But that was total.
what the
I totally don't remember what anything was about. I was like, this is good.
Yeah, you just got to let a show be what it is. And I found myself at times going, that was fun, but what's the point? Not
Right.
because it wasn't actiony, but because we're trying to live two shows right now.
Yeah.
And you can do that in Star Wars The Clone Wars, because how many episodes are in Star Wars The Clone Wars?
What's like 20 times 6? Or what's 20 times 5? Like, it's like 100 and what is it, like 148? Something like that. 136, 148.
Easily over 100. 133.
I was so
134.
close. I was so close.
You can do math. Good job.
Yeah.
When there's
I can guesstimate.
33 episodes, and you know where the show has to start and where it has to end,
There's a lot you can fill in.
there's a lot you can fill in. But when we have a show where we don't know where this goes, where we don't know what they're hinting at or what's going to, it becomes a lot less satisfying when they're just hinting towards vague emotional outcomes.
Yeah.
And that was my biggest thing. I enjoyed it.
Also,
I will say that it was a fun finale. It was good to watch, but the criticism that you're going to see online about this show just has to deal with the content. If you're looking for a show to watch 16 episodes of just to see cool Star Wars action, watch this show.
Yeah,
If you want to see an emotional plot in Star Wars, I can't recommend it. But
yeah.
that's what they
I
were
mean,
still
it
trying
has
to
its
appeal to.
moments, but it's not. Like I think when Omega went missing, it was gripping, but it was like, yeah. Oddly enough, I will say that.
Roskin.
Yeah, you are. You keep freezing. It's a fun time. Uh, I think kind of like what we were talking about of what did and didn't have to be the last episode. It kind of would have been way more interesting if imagine if the show just ended and Hunter's just missing,
Yeah.
and then we'd have a whole season after that, and then the crosshair conflict.
I mean, you could have really gotten something interesting. If you wanted to redeem Crosshair, you could have had it be a situation where the season part two, one finale, part one, I mean. So episode 15 is about Crosshair and Hunter having conflict, and then the catastrophe happens. They start to blow things up. And the finale would have been about them like trying to work together and like forgiving each other, and then Hunter goes missing.
Yeah.
Now Crosshair has a reason to defend himself, to redeem himself. Now,
Yep.
granted, what we got was believable and very real.
Yeah.
But my problem is, I don't want to say this, but like, why should I care?
Yeah. I feel a
He,
lot of the same way.
like,
Also,
if I look at a kid, if Anakin said those lines to Obi-Wan, Padme, Rex, like just his companions after he turned to Darth Vader, that would have been interesting
liar.
because there's stuff happened. He had
Yeah.
a real plot. Whereas Crosshair, like, what is the most traumatic thing that happened to him? He got his face burnt
Yeah.
very severely. Trying
Running
to
theme. Sorry.
right. Trying to hunt these guys down. And he was just doing it because that's what he's being told. He didn't care that people were trying to kill him.
Right?
And it's a fascinating character to have, this character who will follow all orders, and that very much fits with the Empire, just people who want to step in line and do what they're told and be paid. And then you have your situations with the Bad Batch themselves, where they're just like, we have to do the right thing. We're gonna take a cut of pay on our bounty because we want to make sure that we can sleep at night. Whereas Crosshair is like, okay, this is what the Empire told me to do. So you have such different characters, and that's fascinating. But I don't think they displayed that enough in the show for it to matter in the finale.
Yeah, I agree. Also, there's kind of a parallel I want to talk about with Crosshair with another popular character in media.
Go for it.
All right. Also, you're frozen.
Of course I am.
Yeah, of course. But what I wanted to talk about, people are comparing a lot of what's happening with Crosshair to Zuko in Avatar: The Last Airbender. Where, if spoilers for Avatar: The Last Airbender, I'll give you guys a few seconds to tune out if you haven't seen it. But I'm gonna explain it. So, you've watched Avatar: The Last Airbender, right? We all have.
Yeah.
Yeah. The end of season 2 or of book 2 of Avatar: The Last Airbender, where Zuko has the choice to make the right decision, and it's kind of like you're just kind of yelling at him to do it, and he just does the wrong thing because he's seeking his honor. And then season 3 comes along, and we find out that his honor isn't all that it's cracked up to be. Even though he gets everything he ever wanted, he realized it didn't fulfill anything inside of him, and that becomes his problem.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, and I think the parallel with that is Crosshair's purpose. Crosshair feels he doesn't have a purpose with the Bad Batch, and that's like his big hang up, really, with that. Like, he wants to be a part of the Empire because he feels like he's better than everyone in the Empire. If he's the best out of the Bad Batch, even, he doesn't feel like it really means much because what are they really fighting for? I think they'll get into. I think they'll be very early sort of rebel cell sort of thing. I think we're gonna see that stuff with clones. We've already seen Hera. We've already seen Kanan. I think it's not out of bounds to make this kind of not like a Rebels prequel, but just to continue that sort of theme of the traditional Star Wars themes of hope and fighting like authoritarianism sort of deal. So I just really think that until they establish that, till Crosshair can really see that the Bad Batch is helping other people or doing something that they would say is the right thing, I don't think he has much motivation to go back to them unless the Empire wants to persecute him for letting the Bad Batch get away.
Yeah. I think you're exactly right. I mean, you just look at uh, kind of the scene they were trying to establish in their old room,
Yeah,
and Crosser saying, "I never liked it in here, anyways." I don't think it was about them. I think he just has to be doing something. He wants to be on the hunt. He feels like if he doesn't have a purpose, what's the point? And
exactly.
my thing about that is in Avatar: The Last Airbender, they have a lot of time to build that up. And,
Exactly. We spent barely any time with Crosshair, which was like my biggest issue with this first season.
and that's the thing is we had so many secondary villains that the Empire even really didn't get to shine till the last couple episodes. And Crosshair, I mean, like I was saying, I would have loved Crosshair to make bad choice, like to shoot a kid, to shoot a civilian, to I mean, he killed his own squad mates to give the Bad Batch a chance.
Right, and
But
then he did.
that's
Well,
be-
he did. Well, fuck. What's that fat Twi'lek's name? I forget. He shot him.
but that really wasn't he did that because he was ordered to.
Right.
You know, we don't get a lot of like, oh, he's a bad guy
Yeah,
moments.
and but I think part of that's because we know a redemption's coming. There's hope for him. There's a reason he saved Omega. Like,
Yeah, and that's the thing is, you spent so many episodes acting like it was going to happen, and for the finale to be based off of this character that we haven't spent much time with, and there's still not a redemption, it feels unsatisfying because when you read a book, this is literally science. Like when you read a book, you get dopamine from predicting what's going to happen next.
yes,
It's very addictive to be like, oh, what happens next? Because your mind wants to know and predict and be right. And that's the thing about storytelling is it needs to be believable.
yeah,
And at times I'm just like, I don't know where this is going.
yeah. Like,
I don't
what is the show actually about? Like, in terms of themes, right? What does the story mean after all we've been through? Like, really, what is the takeaway? What is like the big thing? And
and it was about clones trying to find purpose.
right, and we're at this point where it's like the Bad Batch hasn't really found their purpose. It just kind of feels like we're on square one. We've learned a lot about these characters. We kind of care about them, but it's clear the show isn't finished, and this the ending wasn't really satisfying in terms of the question. The show poses a question and it doesn't answer it by the end of the first season, which is fine. But it's also there were other things that are also missing. So just overall, it wasn't a satisfying ending.
Yeah, it would have been one thing to leave us with a cliffhanger.
Right.
But to end on such a low bleh note is
Yeah.
just not fun.
Yeah.
And
And
like,
who knows? And another season may go by, and we're like, we can look back at it, and maybe say, "Wow, that was the right decision," right? But
yeah,
while we're
because it
left here to
led to
speculate,
X.
we're like, literally, it could go anywhere from here. Like that's what where we're at.
And here's my big problem. And we can get it more into like what do we think the future of the story is um after we kind of talk about this, but
Tried and
we
boss.
end with Mount Tantus,
Yes.
which is where in Legends that's where a lot of the cloning was done for Palpatine. with a Spartai cloning technology.
Yeah, and the
And
heir to the
and
Empire, relation to Thrawn, all sorts of stuff.
yeah, and it was that was when there was this very tight knit lore within the Empire saga. And we have this presented to us, Mount Tantus. This is our ending.
Yeah, and I was like,
When
I didn't know what Mount Tantus was, so everything that happened, I was like, okay, yeah, the cool cloning stuff. Like, I kind of got it, but I was like, it didn't really mean anything to me. So, like, even making that the actual final shot was really weird.
That's my point that I wanted to make, is that leaving us with that as our note of, oh, this is the future. You didn't present to me any villain. If a like Thrawn walked out, if Vader walked out, everyone would have been like, holy crap. But
Yeah,
instead, you're just like, here's a mountain with some place. This is where Nala Say went. End of the season. It wasn't exciting.
yeah. I'm like,
It was
God damn it, I barely
interesting.
memorized that Kaminoan's name. It's the
It
Mama Say, Mama Hassan. Something. Her name's somewhere in there. Like, fuck, man.
it would have been fun. It would have been cool to have something crazy and off the wall, or just
Yeah.
someone who's recognizable.
Fuck,
But to
even
have
if it
them
was
come in,
literally just Palpatine, it would have felt better. Like,
yeah, if it
because they
was
were like, oh
Palpatine,
shit, they're somewhat involved. But it's like,
so we're
the
just
cloner's
left.
gonna go clone somewhere else after they blew up the cloning facility. It's like, fuck.
And I think you get at another point, Charlie, how removed this is from the rest of Star Wars. I mean, there's stuff
Yes.
going on in the background. This is the Empire, but it's not any of the characters we know. There's no resemblance of any of the plots that we actually care about from Star Wars. I mean, some of the highlights of the show, we're getting to see Rex getting
Right? Like, the people we're
to
so familiar with, right? Like, the highlights of the show are like main characters in other series, which a lot of people hate. I like it a lot. I like when the universe feels connected. I think it made sense when they went, the different planets. They're kind of doing their thing. I think exposing the Bad Batch onto like what's happening on the evils of other planets and with characters we know and we can relate to. We already know what's going to happen to them. I think that's good. I think like the Hera arc specifically, I think that's like one of the highlights of the whole series. Um, Kanan at the beginning was a little unnecessary, if I'm being frank, but I loved it. I literally yelled "Holy shit!" at the beginning,
yeah,
even though if it messed us
when
up the comic. But
Tarkin was on screen, when Hera was there, it grounded what this show was, where you're going, we're in the beginning of something.
exactly,
And I would have really appreciated, this is the thing, we're getting to themes. The theme of our episode today, kids, is themes.
the
They
theme is
started
themes.
and they had a lot of this notion that this was going to be a powder keg, that this is where everything began. This is where things got crazy. This is where the rebels came from. Like, I had this
In a lot
feeling
of
that
ways, it
they
is
were going
right.
to they were going to use the show to explain a lot of things, which they did with Hera, which they well, Hera's numero uno in that, with Rex and what's going on with him.
Yeah,
But at the end of the day, they don't connect it back to the things that
are the
fans
central
who
to the show. Like,
that are central to this timeline. The only person was Tarkin. And although Tarkin is very interesting from a cinematic standpoint,
you may fire when
he's
ready.
just a he's just a villain.
Yeah,
He's no Emperor Palpatine. He's no Darth Vader. He's no Obi-Wan. He's no Jedi. It just doesn't establish a lot. And I get that they want to make a show that stays within the realms and we don't want Jedi. I get that.
yeah. And here's the thing, right? Like Mando season 1 did that really well. There was literally nothing. Like, everything was brand new in Mando. There was not one single returning character, unless you count fucking stormtroopers. Like,
Right. But that show had a central theme. It was very
right?
believable. You
It
always
was,
knew it was going to happen next. And the villains were understandable. They were interesting.
yeah,
And Crosshair, to me, was not the villain. And that's unfortunate.
Right.
He was a subplot
Yeah.
to another story where really it was the vice admiral, who I can't remember his name despite
Rampart.
watching 60. Yeah, Rampart, despite watching 16 episodes, talking about it
Yeah, I
every other
struggle with his
week.
name. Oh,
It's But
yeah.
I can remember other characters.
Right.
You give me someone who's not that interesting, who's just a little bit sinister.
There was that guy that wasn't Vasalgo.
Yeah, you just the reason the show never took off is it was just trying to be too many things.
Yeah, I'd agree. It definitely didn't elicit the reaction, but I also kind of feel that that was pretty expected. The people that really hung on to Clone Wars, even the people that didn't watch, all of it, like it went for very much the same audience that Clone Wars and Rebels had, and I've kind of
Yep.
expect that.
Yeah, I can see that argument. My big thing about this show
But
is
here's the thing: is that season 7 of Clone Wars that was 7 seasons in, and it got people to at least watch that. The
yep,
show didn't really do that.
and here's the thing with all this.
Granted,
It
season
was a
7 finale is like better than most Star Wars movies. So
Star Wars The Bad Batch was a show that existed in another show that you didn't need to watch the other show to watch.
correct.
It was disconnected, right? So it leaves us in a situation where it's a show removed from other things. It wants to be like the Clone Wars. It wants to have high octane action, but it just didn't get there.
Yeah,
It was a show that had a lot of promise and then completely changed directions. However, I will say this completely. The characters, as in our protagonists, the Bad Batch themselves, were extremely interesting.
yeah.
Omega, Wrecker, Echo, Tech, and definitely
I
Hunter.
think I
They
think
established Hunter to be a character who is extremely unique in Star Wars, who no one else is really like. No one else is really that believable
yeah,
for a super soldier character. I mean, the clones were always a little out there because the scenarios they're in it are bizarre.
yeah, and I like exploring that. But yeah,
So it was a show that was simultaneously for the people who watched 133 episodes of Star Wars The Clone Wars, and a show that also wasn't.
yeah,
It lacked direction, but it had action. It had fun moments. It was very cool. If you are just looking to watch Star Wars content that is fun, Saturday morning cartoon kind of stuff, this is it.
yeah.
It's
And it was
extremely
nice because
fascinating.
it was. I mean, it wasn't Saturday morning, but it's my every Friday morning. I got up and watched it.
Yeah,
Like
it was just it was just easy to digest, easy to take
exactly.
in. Didn't take a lot of thought. It was no Game of Thrones mad shit happening. It was no Star Wars Revenge of the Sith where you're sad now after watching it. It just goes and it happens. You watch it, it moves on, you
Yeah,
cheer, you laugh. You never cry. You never go, "Oh, I'm angry at this character." It just tried to play it safe, and safe is what it was.
exactly. And also, I do want to talk a little bit more about what you brought up. Is that I did actually end up liking the characters a lot more than I thought I would have. Like we talked about, you talked about Hunter specifically. He's definitely the standout. He is really the main character of the show. Whether as much as we want it to be Omega, it's definitely everything centers around
It's
Hunter and
Hunter.
his decisions. You know.
I mean, we
Um,
can just tell from the finale, right?
yeah, exactly. It's all about him. Like it's about the group, but he is the central figure. He is, the head of the group, and that's pretty very much apparent. And but I was surprised. I honestly thought I'd hate Wrecker, and I thought he was done really well. I was worried for a while that Tech was going to be a little too boring, which at times he was, but he makes the best snide comments, like just like the littlest of things that I really appreciate about that character. And then in addition to that, Echo definitely still needs some explanation, but it was like comforting having Echo around. And also Echo also is pretty great about making smart ass comments and having weird things like, "Hey, is there an Echo in here?" "Yeah, I'm right here." Like there's little parts
Yeah,
that I loved.
he was the one who countered.
Yeah.
Um,
He grounds the group. That's why I like him a lot.
yeah, and that's the thing is they did a really good job just they did a really good job of making believable characters, and that's what will stick with me. The plot won't, but I definitely how
Yeah.
they took a character like Wrecker, this crazy muscle, and now everyone, there's people in the community here joking and calling him Uncle Wrecker because
Yeah.
he's just this very kind, family loving, like he
He's a
is.
big teddy bear on the inside, despite how many people he just murders. Which, by the way, is also one of my favorite scenes from oh shoot, it was the one right before the finale where everyone's using stun ammunition and Wrecker just pulls up and just starts blasting everyone with live ammunition.
Yeah, you
that's
know,
that's one of my favorite scenes. Because I was like,
but
of
then
course he is.
but then you have the Lula scenes where he's got
My Lula. Yeah.
this little stuffed bunny, and he gives it to Omega. Like they were able to really ground these characters into a world that was believable and make them feel human and give them personality. And at the end of the day, if that's what they wanted to show, is that these people can be more than clones, they did a good job. And
Yeah, and
that's
I
what the
think
finale did.
yeah,
But if
and I
that's what
think
they wanted to
that's
do, that's what we had 7 seasons of the Clone Wars for.
right. But I think it's really effective. And it's like the thing that we need to keep in mind, right? Like this is season 1. I don't know how many seasons, but we know we're getting a season 2. It's very apparent, even before it was announced, that we were pretty much confirmed getting a season 2 unless it did absolutely terrible, which it didn't. The Star Wars hardcore fans were still there. People are still watching it. Millions of people watch it every week. It's still successful. I don't know how many people are also, by comparison, watching, you know, the spiritual or the successor to Mighty Ducks or High School Musical on Disney Plus, but people are still watching Star Wars regardless.
Yeah.
Oh, also, little detail I wanted to talk about, and I do kind of want to talk about the scene more in a bit. But the scene obviously where they blow up Tapoca City and on Kamino.
Yeah.
So someone on TikTok, I forget who, but shout out to her, whatever her name was. Uh, she pointed out that if you so you know how I really want to talk about how the clone was like choked up about blowing up Kamino. Like it was
Yeah.
you could tell it was hard for him. Someone pointed out that they had like little patches on their arms. And I think one was like orange and one was blue. And that's because the clones that blew up to Poca City were the squad that went in with Anakin and Obi-Wan at the beginning of Revenge of the Sith. There's your
Cool.
little Easter
No,
egg. That's really
that's
depressing.
very cool. That's
It's
very
such a
interesting.
small little detail, but I learned that and I was like, I love that. Like, it totally didn't need to be, but like, it's like the smallest detail that makes it hit a little bit closer to home, knowing that it is their their squads that like the combination of their squads that's taking down Kamino.
Yeah. And I think this gets at something for me. There were a lot of little details in the Bad
Yes,
Batch,
the show is
and
so good about that.
the show was fun about Easter eggs and little details, connecting things, but you can't major in the minors.
Yeah,
And we know there's going to be a season 2. It's going to come out sometime in 2022. When that comes out, I'm sure everything is going to seem a lot more connected and we'll understand why. But
yeah,
I
like
unfortunately, when watching 15 and 16, when I watched these last 2 episodes, I was okay with it being done.
yeah, I get that.
And that was not a feeling I thought I would come away from when I finished this. Now, I'm
Right.
going to compare it to The Mandalorian, but I don't mean literally. When I finished both seasons of The Mandalorian, I was like, this can't end. I want more. And
Exactly.
that's exactly what you want when you create content. You want
Exactly. You
people
always want to
you
leave
want
the audience wanting more.
yeah, and it's to the
Because
point
even
where,
if you don't follow through, there's nothing else. It's at least a satisfying feeling that they're like, oh my God, that was awesome. Do it again.
yeah, it the Bad Batch. I don't know that I'll rewatch the Bad Batch
I probably
season 1.
won't until season 2 is about to come out. I might binge it right before, but, or maybe watch a few episodes here and there. But I mean, it's like an album. Like it's not a perfect album. There's some skips in there,
Yeah,
But it's like if I want the
and
major beats, I'll go play a few hit songs, sort of deal.
I will say, like, Charlie and I talked about this so much in the show. Like, there was so many fun moments, stuff that was really cool,
Hey,
stuff that was just great.
hey,
But
guess who just dropped a Twitch Prime? Look who it is. Thank you. Oh, we're up to 6.
there
Wow,
we
we've made more
go.
money doing a Star Wars show this week than I have in like months.
Well, that's what it's all about, ladies and gentlemen. Um, I just, I, I don't mean all of this to complain. I really loved the show. I had a lot of fun,
Yeah.
and I just, I don't want to put this. I had a
So,
lot of fun.
yeah.
I really enjoyed it, and I hope to see more. But with an ending like that, I'm not burnt, but I'm just kind of like, okay,
Yeah.
the emotions are gone, the fun is gone. I'll just wait till we get back to it.
Yeah.
Whenever I don't, it's not something where I'm waiting for it to end. And you know what, Elizabeth, you're exactly right. The the finale wasn't bad.
No, it's
It
not
was
bad at all.
actually good,
But it
but
wasn't satisfying. It was good, but it's not satisfying. That's the thing.
it didn't have a conclusion for me, and it wasn't as fun as the other episodes.
Yeah.
And
It's one of those things, right? Like it didn't really conclude any of the plots. It just concluded because the credits rolled.
yeah, it concluded because it was episode 16, because it said finale part 2.
Yes. Not
So,
because they were finished telling the story, which made it really unsatisfying, honestly. But I think the show has kind of an issue with that, but I think because of that, I think the show will get a lot better in the future.
yeah.
I have a lot of faith for the show to get better in the future. I don't think that I'll keep doing this. I feel like season 1 just kind of got us a bit familiar into what it is that the Bad Batch is really going to be doing. It's kind of like a tester feeler sort of deal.
Mhm.
And the show posed a lot of questions and didn't answer them.
Yeah.
But what it did
And
pose was interesting, right?
let's temper this all with the fact that The Bad Batch was the #1 Disney Plus original series. It was being watched.
Yeah.
Um and it was being watched for a reason. But, all of those moments, they were definitely trying a lot of things, testing things out. I mean, literally their animation got better as the season went
Season
on.
went on.
Like,
Yeah.
that's a fact. Within 5 episodes, we could noticeably tell how much better the color and the lighting was
Right.
in the show. And that was awesome. But, I didn't have in the last 3 episodes, I didn't have any wow, what the hell, just this is out of my mind, I gotta pause it moments. But Kamino looked really cool. Watching them tear it down was
Them watching,
amazingly.
yeah.
Watching it fall was so cinematic. The
Yeah.
idea of
Also,
them
when the Bad Batch
underwater,
reunites together to fight those was like the best.
yeah, that was cool. To have
The full
Elizabeth,
crescendo, like
Elizabeth and I were talking about this. The sea monster in Camino. Everybody was wondering, like, it's a ocean planet. Of course, there's
the
some
sea
giant
monster.
monster.
Yeah.
So it was super cool. It was super fun.
Elizabeth
Yeah, when
definitely hit
they
a point on the head exactly how it felt when we saw Kamino go down. The
It was
child,
something.
the child of me that watched Obi-Wan go there for the first time to a planet that nobody heard about, to it then becoming an epicenter of like a conflict that I watched as a child, sort of deal.
Yeah, but we knew it had to fall,
Yeah,
and how they got there was very interesting and very emotional because Kamino was a center point of this. I mean, there's even the line between Wrecker and Omega. He's like, "I'm sorry I had to make you come back here." She says, "You came here for me. Like, you've already done this for to come get me, so it's fine."
right.
So, like, this was the epicenter, and to watch that fall was very cool, and it meant something to the show, but I don't feel like it was an end for our characters. Like, it wasn't an,
Yeah,
it was just the end of something in the story, not something to the characters. And
yeah,
I'm very obsessed with characterization and writing, and it's just the thing I care about the most.
yeah.
So maybe I'm being nitpicky, but I'm not. I love the
Well,
show.
yeah.
The
Well, there
show's
wasn't really
awesome.
any real indication. I guess we should talk about this now. It's as good a time as any. There wasn't really any real indication as where to the show could go. Going back to that ending shot of Mount Tantus, you know.
Yeah. Camino's gone. Tans isn't there. What are we left with? We're left with Rex. We're left with the cloning plot line because they've shown us
Side note.
Tantus.
Why the fuck did we not even find out what the hell happened to Gregor? We totally should have.
Yeah.
He was there and then he wasn't the next episode when the screen came back on.
Yeah.
Like,
He
there's
was,
no reason he couldn't have just been a part of the Bad Batch to go help them go get. Like, they dropped him off and then they did that? You know,
or
like.
he's just with Rex, So
Yeah, but it
we'll
was like
see.
we didn't
They have a
even see
lot of
Rex, so it's like,
they
whatever.
have a lot of content to work with.
Yeah.
And I think they focused this season with stuff that wasn't really that interesting. And, you think about like The Mandalorian, this is always going to be the comparison because it's the most successful Disney show.
Yeah, it'll stop once we, get all the other 20 shows they announced.
You know,
But
when
for
you
now,
have a
it's
show like that, where what's the first season about?
right.
He's really just trying to understand what's going on and who the kid is and trying
Yeah.
to keep him away from people.
Yeah.
And it's really grounded in a central plot. Whereas
Exactly.
it's just kind of dancing around Crosshair.
Yeah.
So
And here's the thing. There's something really big that differentiates this from most other Star Wars series that we've watched, and that it so far, like, we know the show wants to explore the ideas of clones, but we're not quite there yet. But there's also, like, we've had like you said, we had all of Clone Wars. There's 133 episodes, basically, mostly detailing stuff about clones, right? Like, clones is a very well scripted, well known about part of Star Wars canon. The Mandalorian's a little different. Why? Because there is a bit of a mystique to the concept of the Mandalorian. Like,
yep.
he is this mysterious outlaw. He's a guy we don't even see his face. Until the end of the first season, and then again until the end of the second season. Like, he is entirely mysterious. He's going back to basically these roots of this religion, sort of culty bullshit. Like, it is an entirely part of a culture, and he's not even necessarily fully aware of it. And that explores what is it like to be a Mandalorian.
Yeah,
Baby Yoda, a Mandalorian, or Grogu. But it's just kind of this thing where there's these natural questions, and you don't really get that with clones. Like, we kind of know what the deal with the Bad Batch is. It's the end of season 1. Our only questions from now is like, where does this go? Why was Mount Tantus involved? And I think a lot of what's being held back is because of the future Star Wars projects. I think, like, Book of Boba Fett could certainly have stuff that ties in to other stuff, although I don't think that's the show I'm running to for, hey, what's going on with the clones? Yeah.
Yeah, so
and it's like, I think we're going to see stuff in Ahsoka. I think we're going to see stuff in Bad Batch Season 2. I think we're going to see stuff in Mandalorian Season 3 when that happens. So
I think the realm of natural questions is a perfect way to look at that. What do you ask when you're reading this? What do you think?
Right.
you don't want to be told everything. You want to be guessing between what's going on because it makes it interesting. There's a little bit of a mystery to what is going on, and the Bad Batch is trying to figure that out, right?
Yeah, it
The
was like,
one
why was that
question,
relevant? And it might not even necessarily be entirely for that show.
the one question they barely answered, and that was a problem to me, was Omega, and
What's her purpose?
that was without a doubt where I thought this would end.
Yeah, it's just that she's a pure Boba Fett clone or Jango Fett clone. That's like
They're
kind of, but
they just said, "Hey, she's older than you all. She is actually ages normally. She is a normal person. Like she's
oh wait, there's
essentially a
a theory
normal
we haven't
clone."
talked about.
And but that's the thing is we're left with theories.
Yeah, there's a
And
theory that she ages half as slow. I'm not a fan of the theory, but people are because we've seen that Boba is bigger, but I think she was post Boba, so that was kind of my understanding. So I was like,
either way, I just don't
but I guess she's older
think
than Gen 1 clone, so I don't know.
the
She clearly
things
came after Boba because he's Alpha, she's Omega, literally.
the things that were the most interesting to me in this show never got addressed. And that's why the finale wasn't satisfying.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. So do we want to talk about a little bit about Mount Tantus and what we think is going to happen? Do you have
I'm
any
just gonna say
theory?
that I don't because it's literally had so much established lore and canon, and it was shown in a show where I don't really think the plot has anything to do with cloning technology and the Emperor making clones and perfecting that so he can clone himself, connecting to the sequel trilogies.
Yeah, I think that's part of it. Personally, I'm a fan of how it kind of relates to the old heir to the Empire stories, and I think a reason they showed it was because we have the Ahsoka show coming up, and we know that Thrawn will be prevalent in that, and that's
But here's
where Thrawn got
but
an
here's the
army.
thing.
But why was that in
That's
that show?
exactly.
But
That's
here's the thing:
Ahsoka
it's
stuff.
Star Wars. Because
You
you know
know,
why? Because it's
it,
fucking Star Wars, dude.
it's just bad. I would
And you
I
know
would
what? It's something that could be central to literally 3 different shows. That's why.
and that's not satisfying.
We'll see.
Charlie,
It's
you
not a
know,
satisfying ending. We agree on that.
what is the future of the Bad Batch of that? I cannot say. And I think we've had a lot of questions and we've talked about a lot of things in this show that may not get answered for some time,
Yeah,
maybe a
probably
year.
3 years.
And at the end of the day, that is what it is.
It is what it is. If he dies, he dies.
He dies. He dies. So I'll just end on this note for talking about it because I don't really have anything to theorize on because we weren't left with a lot. Um, I
Which actually is
appreciated,
maybe my main critique.
yeah,
It
and
was
that's my
literally,
critique,
we were
right?
literally given no room to speculate. We're like, oh, Mount Tanton's neat.
This was a show, like I said, it's Saturday morning cartoons. The characters were fun. They make you laugh. They make you smile. I mean, even Sid, you love to hate her if you didn't like Sid because that character is grating. Um,
Buzzball.
yeah, it was just this show fit the trope of bounty hunters quite well. And I hope in the future they lean into that because those were some of the most exciting moments. And I'm not nervous for uh, what this show will become, but at the end of the day, I'm okay that season 1 is over.
I agree with that. Yeah.
That's all I got.
Alrighty, you want to take us to our normal scripted outro?
Yeah, let's just go right for it. Well, everybody who joined us today in chat, drop some lovely subs. Thank you for being here. Thank you for tuning in from all across the galaxy. or my living room. Thank you, my lovely fiance. If you liked the episode, please consider subscribing to our podcast and sharing our podcast with a friend or a family member who might enjoy it. Do that all wherever you get your podcast from. If you want to interact with us, help us make the show even better as we move into new content that's not Bad Batch related. Consider interacting with us on Discord or on our Twitter using the links in the show notes, or if you're literally watching the video version, our Twitter is in the top right corner. But yeah, once again, thanks for tuning in, guys. Goodbye, and may the force be with you.